Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Fair warning and caution given right at the front. I'm going to be talking a little bit about gender and the differences between gender in this video. And since I'm going to be speaking extemporaneously and from the heart, I'm probably going to get some of my 50-year-old sensibilities all messed up in there. I'm sure Devin on the couch behind me will smack me if I go too far out of line. That being said, in the meantime, I want to make it perfectly clear. Like many things in the human condition, I personally think that gender is more of a spectrum than a binary, and I understand that there is a lot of humans are diverse and specialized and specified. No two people are alike. Everyone is an individual, and while I'm going to be referring to some physical aspects of people, I am in no means making judgments about those differences, just pointing a couple out. And if your research and sourced material has it better or more accurately than I do, that's what the comment section is for. Please let me know. It's not a day if I'm not being educated. That being said, I had a conversation with a friend of mine years ago that wasn't exactly an argument and wasn't exactly not over the second edition Mutants and Masterminds rules of all things. The first edition Mutants and Masterminds rules were based on the OGL, the D20 OGL, Open Gaming License. So it was very like the third edition Dungeons and Dragons, at least its core mechanics. In particular, your statistics, strength, stamina, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, agility, charisma, they had a bearing on your character's performance, mostly in combat. Dexterity makes you harder to hit, strength makes you hit harder, things like that. And because they could not use or were made second edition Mutants and Masterminds to stop relying on the OGL because of some corporate politics at the time, one of the changes they made was they divorced your physical statistics from your combat ability, which I did not like in particular. Okay, I really hated that. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen anyone do in a gaming system. Just because you have a higher dexterity and you're more agile doesn't make you any more difficult to hit or dangerous in combat. Just because you have a higher strength doesn't mean you hit someone more often or harder, which, yes, it does, but... And they went to a system where you have to buy up all of your bonuses for combat and defense and whatnot separately, and hell with that. But the comment made by a friend of mine was that, well, that means that you have your somewhat dangerous guys who are really strong, and you don't have and that doesn't mean that just because you're a ballerina you're good in combat. To which I stated, have you ever met a ballerina? Ballerinas are pretty dangerous people in combat in general. And he set that down to my subjective experience. I had known some dangerous ballerinas, but that doesn't mean that ballerinas, high dex, dancy, agile folks, regardless of other physical conditioning, are necessarily dangerous just because that's what they are. I stopped the conversation at that point in time, just nodded, agreed to disagree, moved on. But it's grinding on me and has been for quite some time. Well, now I have a vlog and I can talk about stuff like this, so here we go. What brought this to a forefront in my mind at the moment? Again, something in the past, but the much more recent past, a few weeks ago, maybe as early as last week. I saw a posting on social media that was complaining about the combat styles of female action heroes in recent movies, the Black Widow in the Avengers movies and whatnot, that they do these moves where they're grappling with thigh grapples, doing scissor maneuvers and getting up high on their opponents and using catching them between the thighs or between the knees and doing full body movements to take them down. And you don't see male action heroes doing stuff like that all the time. Why do women have to do this thing with combat? Why can't they just fight like like action heroes do? I didn't reply. I don't get into arguments like this online, not on social media, because have you tried doing that lately? No. I will address it here, though. In general, men have traditionally, in general, good upper body strength. That's why your male action heroes are using fisticuffs, or your Schwarzeneggers and your Stallones, your folks that are overall well fit, but the more muscle mass they have, the more they tend to go full on boxing or upper body Jeet Kune Do. It's not everyone can be Danny Yen or Donnie Yen, pardon me, and do full body kung fu. That's a different level of training entirely. Your classic American action hero is upper body, or classic male American action hero is upper body, back to shoulders to fist out. In general, women tend to have much better lower body strength than upper body strength. So it is playing to a strength of the frame to use more lower body moves. As for going aerial, one, that looks better. Now, I know some takedowns involving just my legs. I use them on the ground because I'm a 50-year-old man with a bad back, and if I try to go aerial, I will kill myself. Someone who can properly go aerial is a really impressive display. Plus, again, a physical gender difference. Men tend to, for the most part, have a high center of gravity, just under the heart, right here. Women tend to have a center of gravity much lower, around the hips. So if you can get that lower center of gravity over mine, I don't stand much of a chance of retaining my footing. I'm already struggling to retain balance and stay upright. You apply any transverse force or any torque above with a lower center of gravity when you're above my center of gravity, I'm going down. That's a given. So this combat style that someone, I don't even remember who, took offense to, is a really effective use of the general female frame. Ballerinas. It got me back on the generalization of ballerinas as dangerous. Why? Why are ballerinas dangerous people? They're these delicate, feather-light, floaty folk who can twirl in place, and they're insanely dangerous people. Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, the Red Room school that she was trained conceals its existence as a school of ballet for the Bolshoi. There's a reason for that. Traditionally, you do not find much more rigorous training than the training given to a ballerina, starting out or continuing their existence. There's a reason that the stereotypical ballet instructor is a woman in her 30s to 50s who is no longer capable of performing the majority of the moves themselves, but knows them all and is a rigorous stickler for the discipline and movement necessary. She can no longer perform the moves in general because she has overstrained her frame and is no longer capable. Her knees, her hips, her ankles, her toes will simply not support that type of activity anymore. From day one, ballerina's training involves flexibility and kicking for power and accuracy. Jumping, increasing muscle mass in the thighs and calves, hips. It's not necessarily upper body training, but it is some of the most insane lower body conditioning you can possibly find. Bruce Lee was studying ballet just before he passed away because there were things about kicking that ballet taught that he had never mastered. Again, Bruce Lee was studying ballet before he passed because it taught things about kicking Bruce Lee had never mastered. A ballerina has the ability to kick anything within the length of their legs, frankly. You don't have to be that tall of a ballerina to kick me in the head. You really don't. A ballerina who is 4'5" or higher could put a toe in one of my eyes. That toe, incidentally, is a striking surface. Unlike traditional martial arts, karate, kempo, shotokan, where you're using the heel or the ball of the foot, or you're straining the foot to the side so that you're getting a knife edge on the outer edge of the foot, the toe is a perfectly acceptable striking surface for a ballerina. It can support her weight. How long can you stay on your toes? I'm willing to bet it's not the duration of Swan Lake. Uh, Look at pictures of ballerinas' feet sometimes. Well, if you don't mind getting on one of those internet lists. They're destroyed. They bleed at the beginning of their training constantly. You're not meant to put that pressure on those phalanges, past those carpals that hard, but, or is it tarsals in the foot? I can never keep the bones straight. But they do. They train those feet, condition them to toughen them, strengthen them. Now, you might be saying, yes, Scott, but that's just so they can support their weight on it. That doesn't translate into a striking surface. Oh, yes, it does. That's why in Muay Thai, you do your push-ups on your knuckles until they bleed, and then you keep doing it. Same type of conditioning. Now, ballet does not generally teach you to kick at a surface. There's no striking practice in particular, but it's not a hard translation to make. You're still kicking for targets. There's precise points you need to hit in those kicks while you're performing. This translates into other forms of dance. I don't know any dancers personally who are not dangerous as hell. I was friends with a dancer a few years ago, mostly exotic dancing, but she had routinely kicked a few muggers in the face. To good effect. All high dex characters are not necessarily female characters. It is a mark of the mindset of gamers, particularly male gamers, that lower strength, higher dex tends to apply more towards female characters. In earlier editions of some games, before a little more gender consciousness came into the industry, which I'm glad to see that it has, there were modifiers for strength, dexterity, whatnot, um, based on gender, which led to the concept that there are some differences in the level of danger, and there's not. In fact, if anything, I've always considered female characters to be a little bit more on the dangerous side when it comes to raw statistics and capability. You don't want to put too much of that difference into mechanics. People are people, and with the broad range of variation in humans in general, you don't really need to add a mechanic. Characters are diverse things enough that you don't really need a mechanic to point out the difference. Also, by not adding specific mechanics for that, you lend your system to being able to handle the spectrum of gender as opposed to binary decisions. Haven't been hit in the head yet, so I think I'm doing okay. This is why I don't like systems that divorce what a person is from what a person can do, what a person's physical attributes are from how they perform combat or particular skills, because it should all be one flow of the mechanic. I don't necessarily ascribe to assigning a gender to a range of statistics for that reason, because I don't see a reason to have a difference in capability. You can point to dozens of studies, and other people can point to dozens more. It comes down to preference at this point, particularly when you're dealing with a fantasy simulation. I may have strayed a bit off of my main point. So, Newton's Masterminds 2nd edition still sucks. Ballerinas, super dangerous. Female combat styles represented as being more aerial acrobatic and lower body intensive. Perfectly viable. You want to know, and here's why I think that looks better. Here's why I prefer that. And it's not a female who really stuck it in my mind. It was a male, a real life male athlete, one of the legends of professional wrestling. You ever see a Rey Mysterio fight? Because he didn't have that muscle mass that most professional wrestlers in his league happened to have. He didn't have the ability to bench press refrigerators or tilt ambulances over on their side. But when Rey Mysterio went aerial, it was poetry. The moves that only he could do, because having the whole body fitness that he had and a relatively light frame, particularly compared to the other folks around him, his ability to move his center of gravity over someone else's and power them to the ground. I see some Rey Mysterio influence in how they have the Black Widow fighting in the Avenger films, and Iron Man 2. And I don't have a problem with that. Stage combat, theatrical combat, movie combat, if it's on one axis, it's a little boring. And if you see two people exchanging blows from the waist up in a sword fight, that's okay. But that's not exciting. It might be accurate. It might be how a lot of those combats actually go. There might be a little fencing and some twirls going on, but Now they start making lower body attacks at the same time and going in for that. Okay. Now you have a combat on 2 axes, and you have me much more interested. It looks better. It's not necessarily better combat doctrine, but it's really good stage combat. You get any or either of those folks aerial and working this on a 3rd axis. Doesn't need to be a more complex fight. It just needs to be in a larger theater of movement. And the more of that you do, the better the fight looks. Yeah, and Iron Man flies. The Hulk jumps. Black Widow goes aerial in combat. And she does it beautifully. And she's a ballerina. Just something to think about. Well, thank you for following me along with this particular rant about things. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If you have any comments or questions or rants or castigations, well, there's a comment section right below. Please feel free to leave me something. I'll read them all and answer them if necessary, hopefully. I'd like to see these videos when they come out. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you hit the subscribe button, make sure to hit the little bell that notifies you when things actually come out. If you really dug the video, invite you to hit me up on my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Every donation helps and lets me make videos more often and with better production values. And just about used to the new camera now, so it's time to upgrade something somewhere. And helps me move forward to bigger and better plans that I have in the future. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. My name is Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me, and I'll see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.